Okay, once again, Ecclesiastes 8, 1 through 9. Who is like a wise man? Who knows the interpretation of a thing? The man's wisdom makes his face shine, and the sternness of his face is changed. I say, keep the king's commandments for the sake of the oath to God. Do not be hasty to go from his presence. Do not take your stand for an evil thing, for he does whatever pleases him. Where the word of a king is, there is power. And who may say to him, what are you doing? He who keeps his commands will experience nothing harmful. And a wise man's heart discerns both time and judgment. Because of every matter there is a time and judgment. Though the mystery of man increases greatly, for he does not know what will happen, so who can tell him when it will occur? No one has power over the Spirit to retain the Spirit, and no one has power in the day of death. There is no release from that war, and wickedness will not deliver those who are given to it. Okay, so the first thing he says, beginning in verse 1, basically says a good leader, if you will, are those individuals who have a good business model, or individuals who kind of know where they're going. So sometimes, there's individuals that you've experienced as a boss or leader. Can they articulate what they want to tell you? Can they articulate what it is that they want you to do? Some people may not be able to fully explain exactly what they're wanting from you. How in the world can they really be a good leader if somehow or another they can't explain, now this is what I expect of you. These are the things that I, want you to do. And so we obviously need a good plan if we're going to be a good employee or a good follower. We need individuals who can kind of tell us what they expect. And sometimes that's not always the case. He goes on to talk about those who are good leaders have a positive outlook. A positive outlook. We find that in verse 1 as well. And it says, and the sternness of his face is changed. And so, I had this said of me, and I know it's things I need to work on, but it's just kind of the way I am. In a church I served on staff, I was the minister of announcements. I mean, not really, but, on Sunday morning, that's basically what I did. I was the youth pastor. And so on Sunday morning, I got up and made announcements. And so I had a secretary said, Brother Mike, you need to smile. You look like a bulldog sitting up there. So I know it's something I ought to do. I don't know. I guess it's just who I am. But so we need to, but regardless, I guess, of facial expressions, we need to have a positive outlook. And, I hope that's something that, I can share with you more. I like to think that even though I may not see it, that I try to be positive. But all of us need, it's nice to be around, I don't know. Do you like to be around a person who's negative? No. We'd all like to be around people who are positive, someone who can encourage us, and someone who, we really like to be around because we feel just better about things. It's no fun to be around individuals who are, as they say, Debbie Downers. It's just not any fun to be around individuals who are that kind of person. And so a good leader is just going to have a very positive outlook. And it really is. It does make a difference when you're in leadership. People want to know that, you can encourage them and get them on board. I'll never forget one time I was working a secular job, and, we had a lot of stuff to do. And I'm sitting there looking, and I'm thinking, no, I just don't see how we're going to get all that done. And there was a guy, man, he was just all gung-ho and like, we can do this. And so he just rallied us all around, and we got it done. Even though it was a lot to do, and I didn't think we'd get it done. We did. And so it's nice to have someone who has a positive outlook. And then thirdly, in verses 2 through 4, let me read that again to you. He says, I say, keep the king's commandment for the sake of your oath to God. Do not be hasty to go from his presence. Do not take your stand for an evil thing, for he does whatever pleases him. Where the word of a king is, there is power, and who may say to him, what are you doing? So, those who guard their speech, we need to be careful what we say. Now, sometimes we think, well, and I know you've all been on the receiving end, someone says something, and sometimes it's not necessarily what they said, but how they said it. And we've, unfortunately, all kind of been there, done that. We said something or another, and we didn't mean it wrong. We didn't mean it harsh. But sometimes it kind of sounds that way. And it may just be our personality. It may just be, I remember being at a church, and I had a deacon. Great guy, but boy, he was gruff. He was, he just, when he talked, he just, you're like, wow, So he kind of put you back, a little bit. And so we need to, as leaders, be individuals who guard our speech. Employees, he talks about in verse 2, should be loyal. Employees should be loyal. And really, as we think about church, should church members be loyal? Yeah. I mean, what good does it do if you're trying to grow a church and the members out there, talking about, man, tell you what, man, there's all kinds of things going up there, man. We got the sorriest preacher around. Tell you what, well, ain't nobody want to come to a church like that. And so even if you do have some issues, please don't go out in the community and share those thoughts. And certainly if they're negative, if they are, maybe you can go talk to the person and say, hey, there's some things I'd really like to kind of talk over with you, and maybe, we can make, I'd like to make a few suggestions, whatever. And so, we need to be loyal. We need to be faithful. That's something that's obviously needed in our churches. Unfortunately, we're living in a new day. And it's not just Southside, but it is churches all throughout the U.S. Unfortunately, COVID has changed the way we gather, has changed our attendance, because you see churches that simply do not have the amount of people that they once had. And I don't think it's necessary that somehow or another they stopped caring about church or they stopped caring about the pastor. For some reason, it's just COVID has got people spooked. And it's like, and of course I'm doing, live Facebook. And so people, who for whatever reason can't make it, they're able to tune in. And even, I think I've shared with you, there's some people that have viewed from California, and some people have viewed from New York. So, there's people watching from coast to coast. And so we have really, especially on Sundays, we have as many people viewing on Sundays as we do here. I don't know who all they are, but, there's people viewing. So we need to be faithful. Thirdly, we need to be fair and trustworthy. Fair and trustworthy. You find that in the last part of verse 3. He tells us here that do not be hasty to go from his presence. Do not take your stand for an evil thing, for he does whatever pleases him. Don't take a stand for evil things. So we need to be, individuals who are, can God trust you? Are we trustworthy? You know, that's kind of like character. What's character? Character is one of those things when nobody's looking, that's what you do. You know, so are you a trustworthy individual? You know, can people trust you? You know, are you fair? And that, you know, you want to make sure that things are done right and you are fair. Lastly, verse 4 talks about being supportive. We need, as individuals, to be supportive. Kind of goes back to being loyal, if you will, but being supportive. You know, I don't know if any of you have ever had an idea and you took it and you talked to someone about it. Now, I understand, you know, every time you may not be able to tell someone, great idea, good idea, but maybe we can still support them. Even though the idea may not, is in your mind anyway, may not be a great idea. I've told you about the guy who started tape ministry. It only took God 3 times to drill it into my head that, you know, that was what he needed to do. And when he did, you know, I tried to support him as much as I could. And I, you know, as I stand here today, it just amazes me what he and his wife did throughout that ministry. And so need to be supportive. And then, fourthly, talks about in verses 5 through 7, good judgment. Good judgment. An individual who's a good leader needs to have good judgment. Verses 5 through 7 says, and who keeps his command will experience nothing harmful. And a wise man's heart discerns both time and judgment. Because for every matter there's a time and a judgment, though the misery of man increases greatly, for he does not know what will happen. So who can tell him when it will occur? And so, I think this has to be just maybe a God-given thing, but a good sense of timing. A good sense of timing. You know, earlier in the book, it talks about there's a time for everything. There's a time for everything. You know, going to someone who is experiencing a terrible thing in their life is probably not the time you need to go talk to them about something that, you know, that's kind of painful. Something that obviously could be upsetting to them. Maybe you need to choose a little better time. Maybe you need to find out when, you know, a better time would be. And so we need to have a sense of timing. So be prayerful. Be an individual who is trying to be in tune with God. We're talking about on Wednesday nights, experiencing God. You know, God is always at work, and he invites us to join him. But he does that when it's right. You know, sometimes God may not tap you for service right then because it may not be right for you. It may not be the right time for you. And as believers, we need to have a good sense of timing. Secondly, decisions must be thought through. I may have told you, I'm not sure. There was a lady one time that felt like that she wanted to go and minister to individuals in the hospital. Great thing to do, isn't it? Go to the hospital, visit with individuals who are going through a difficult time in life. And she just felt like that was her thing to do. And so she headed out to the hospital. This lady was going to have some kind of surgery. And being the positive individual she was, she said, you know, so-and-so had that and they died. Oh, boy. Probably not a good case of being thoughtful in the situation. So we need to make our decisions so that it is thought, you know, we've thought it through, you know, and not just kind of run into something, you know, got to be making sure that God's timing and His timing is always right. Here's another one that might be something that we just need to ask God to give us wisdom, and that is stability under pressure. Some people don't do well under pressure. Some people just really panic and just really, crumble under pressure. But if you're going to be a good follower or leader, if you're going to be a good leader, you have to be able to stand up to pressure. It's not always easy being the leader because, that's, as they say, that's kind of where the buck stops. And so who's going to take the hit? Well, if you happen to be the leader, that's it. You're it. And so we need to be individuals who can be stable, can take the pressure, take the bad news and either change it around to where what are you going to do under these circumstances? Is there a plan B? Can you drop back and do something different? I know everybody's not an Alabama fan, but the quarterback for Alabama, I'm really impressed because that guy don't seem to get ruffled up one bit. He's got runners coming at him, about to tackle him, and he scrambles, but he just didn't look like he's, gets flustered at all. And that's the way we need to be as leaders. Fourth? Huh? Really? Wow, that's super. That's great. Maybe that's why, because he just don't seem to be bothered at all. It doesn't matter if Alabama's down, they trailing, or like I said, all the pressure. He just seems to be cool as a cucumber. All right, that's great. I didn't realize that. And number 4, sensitive to the needs of others. Here's another thing that we just need to really rely on God. Are we sensitive to the needs of others? What if you're sitting there having dinner with someone, supper or a cup of coffee, I don't know. Maybe you're just sitting there across the table from them talking. And they just really, that person that you're talking to, just kind of seems like they're here, but they're gone. They just don't seem to be there with you. They're distracted. Sometimes, if it's appropriate, maybe we just need to say, hey, everything all right? Everything going good with you? You seem to be distracted a little bit. And so we need to be individuals who are sensitive. I heard a story one time, and I don't know how each of us would react. Everyone kind of reacts different. There was a man on a train, and he's going back home, and he just seems to be, his kids are just running around, yipping and hollering and whatever, and this man is, not dealing with it. And somebody confronts him about it. I'm sorry. I just came from the hospital. My wife just died. No wonder the guy wasn't in tune with what was going around him. Man, that guy was grieving. He was hurting. And no wonder he didn't sit there and discipline his kids. Everybody don't deal with things the same. Now, we could judge him and say, well, he should have, oughta. I don't know, how would we react if, we lost our mate, just moments ago. And so, anyway, we need to be sensitive to the needs of others. Lastly, in verse 8, he talks about having an humble spirit. No one has power over the Spirit to retain the Spirit, and no one has power in the day of death. There is no release from that war, and wickedness will not deliver those who are given to it. And so we need to be humble in spirit. We need to have the understanding who's really in control. Sometimes we like to think, well, I'm in control. Really? What does it say here in verse 8? No one has power over the Spirit to retain the Spirit. So, God is in control. We might like to think, I'm the one in control. I got this. Well, maybe you don't. And so we need to understand God is the one in control. You know, I'd like to be able to stand up here tonight and tell you, here are the reasons you're going through what you're going through. I can't do that. I don't know. But God, as we say, He's got it. He's the one that's in control. He's the one that's got it all figured out. All we can do is turn to Him and ask God to somehow or another help us through this situation. Those of you who come on Wednesday night remember the story of Henry Blackaby and his daughter who had cancer. And, you know, there he is dealing with all that. And he understood God was in control. God is the one who, you know, had that. And so when we find ourselves not understanding what's going on, God's, you know, I don't know why He's doing it. I don't know why the things, your hand, you know, you got dealt the hand that you did. I don't know. You know, like I said, if I could figure that out, you know, I could sit there and talk to everybody and tell them, okay, here's what you need to do, but I don't know. So sometimes we don't have everything figured out. But God understands. God knows why. We just have to turn to Him and say, Dear Lord, help me as I go through this situation. Help me to somehow or another see what You're trying to help me learn. Help me to be more like You through this situation. So those are some steps as he points out about being a good leader. And like I said, I know that there's areas obviously I need to work on. You just have to pray for me and pray God would help me to be what I ought to be and strengthen me. And anyway, so all right, let's close in a word of prayer. Father, we thank You for being with us tonight. I thank You so much for helping us to go through this passage. May we all be better at being followers of You. I pray, Father, that we would, as I mentioned this morning, be individuals who are known as Christians, being Christ-like. Father, as we go outside these doors, may we be individuals who share the love of Jesus in word, in deed, in actions, whatever we can do so that people will see Jesus in us. We thank You and love You in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.